Pivographers, I'm Grace and we are back again. If you watched our previous video, we tested how A, B and C went up against our Pod Red and Pod Silver, and today we'll be going over D, E and F. So in our previous video, we went in depth into our Pivo pods and all of the cool things you can get with them, but just so you don't feel left out, I will give a brief overview again, but make sure you check out the first video. In front of me here, I have the Pivo Pod Red and the Pivo Pod Silver. So essentially, the Pod Silver is 2 times faster as it has an improved motor, and the general feel of the pod itself is it's very sturdy and it fits into my hand. So here we have the adjustable mount, and we also have our smart mount that helps you get all of the awesome angles you need to capture your creative shots. And we have our action mount, which means you can extend Pivo's tracking capabilities to your action cam and get awesome wide angle shots and the stability you get with your action cam. The Pivo Pod itself comes with all of these awesome apps. We have our Pivo Pod app where you have tracking, you can customize all of your tracking. We have sweet quick create modes like Clone Trail, Many-Me, Tiny Planet. We have Pivo Meet where you can use tracking in your video calls, or you can cast to your computer or use face tracking within any app. And then we have Pivo Present to upgrade your presentations, and Pivo Tour to make 360-degree virtual tours. So to get started today, I will be reviewing Challenger D. Make sure to check out part 1 of this video for challenges A, B, and C and my thoughts on them. So the hardware, the fit is comfortable, I suppose. If you put your hand like this, it seems a bit cumbersome, particularly when compared to our Pivo Pod. It comes with this mount attachment, which seems to be fairly standard for a lot of the challenges. So in terms of the experience of the mount, it seems to be pretty standard. Your smartphone needs to sit very high up, but what is different with the smart mount in comparison is it's very easy and smooth to move around, it's solid, and also the smart mount itself is aluminium and much more durable. It's not rechargeable in the sense that it is with the Pivo Pod. It's actually battery powered. One of the key differences with this Challenger is it comes with an app. So taking it outside, I had quite high expectations because one of the huge benefits of having an application is being able to see if the device is tracking you. So as you can see in our footage, you have the Pivo Pod with the Pivo Pod app set to body tracking. Our Challenger D only has face tracking and object tracking available, and we used face tracking for this example. So when it comes to the actual tracking itself, what we found was it was very slow. Once you select tracking in Challenger D's application, that's the end of the capabilities with tracking. Whereas in the Pivo Pod app, you can choose the speed of the tracking. So even up against Pivo Pod Red, this device was not able to keep up at the same pace and certainly couldn't keep up with our 2 times faster Pod Silver. Using our device D, which came with an application, the photo taking experience was interesting because as soon as you turn the device on and you have face tracking set up in camera mode, for some reason there is a countdown that is constantly going. So it would start from 3, 2, and then stop, or it would start taking photos and then it would stop altogether. So it was a bit of a confusing experience as I wasn't sure when to pose, when I was taking photos, when I wasn't taking photos, and yeah. So outside of that, the actual application itself seems to have a permanent edit or soft blur effect filter over the videos and photos. So the quality of the images I was getting were not as good as your regular camera application or the Pivo Pod app. With the Pivo Pod app, we have this awesome feature called Smart Capture that allows you to step away from your phone and simply take a photo by snapping, saying cheese. You can stand still and Pivo will recognize this and automatically take a photo. There is a countdown and other signals from the application so you know exactly when the photo is going to be taken. And you can also select a burst of 5 or 10 photos to be taken in that 1 second. With the Pivo Pod, you also gain access to a remote control which you can use to remotely take photos. So with the application or with the remote control, you can really step away from your phone and move within your space with the capabilities of tracking to take some really awesome photos completely hands-free. So I think we can move on to Challenger E. Here we have Challenger E. As you can see, the general design seemed to go with the same shape, which I suppose could be seen as wind resistant. Challenger E is also battery charged, and the device itself has a camera here in the front and then this mount for your phones. And generally I find the experience of this not the best, particularly when it comes to, particularly when it comes to taking it out. So when it came to tracking, I wasn't too sure whether there was a problem with the device, but it only seemed to be able to track in about a 30-degree space. We couldn't see whether it was tracking as there was no application as with pods A, B, and C. When it did seem to track, it would abruptly lock on, and then for some reason it would track sporadically here and then it would just stop past a certain point. Overall, the mount for the smartphone is not the best experience and wasn't secure in practice either, and tracking was very limited. So from here, last but not least, I think we can move on to Challenger F. So when it comes to the hardware of Challenger F, the device itself is smaller than the Pivo Pod, as you can see, but the device itself cannot be used without this mount that comes with it. So using the mount itself and having your smartphone in, the device itself is not as secure as you would hope it to be. Moving the mount any degree forward or backward means that the device falls over, so it needs to be used with a tripod. Unfortunately, it wouldn't work unless it was plugged into a battery, so as you will be able to see in the footage coming up, that's the setup that we had. Taking this pod outside, the tracking itself, as with all the other devices that did not have an application, was sporadic to say the least. It was inconsistent when it came to tracking and it would often fall over. The tracking really speaks for itself in terms of the size minus the mount. It's quite small, but then it's impossible to use this device without a mount and without being attached to a tripod or other sort of stand to secure it in place. So that concludes our adventure on testing 6 of these challenges against our Pod Red and Pod Silver. In this video, we covered the last 3, Challenger D, E, and F, so make sure you check out the first half where we cover A, B, and C. After testing all of these 6 challenges against our Pivo Pods, I think I can confidently say that the whole user experience of our Pivo Pods is significantly better. So that is it for today. If you have any questions, comment down below and I will see you in our next video. See ya!